This is your host, Jason Snowgrove, and I will be your guide as we journey down the road to pleasure hunt or hitting the long trail to those great cob hunts. This is the Coonhound Collective Podcast.
So being a good feed manager and letting the dog really dictate to you the protein, fat, and the amount is very critical.
This is just a sample of what's to come today. We've had great response from this three-part series of the Great Dog Food Debate. We winded up this week with Keith Dodson with Extreme Dog Fuel. There you heard his voice talking about being a good food manager. And there's other great tidbits through here. I highly recommend you listen to this more than one time. Take time to really pay attention to what's being said here and take something from this, whether you're feeding extreme or something else. Here's another clip from this week.
Been on our food a little over a month, and the vet told the guys, said, you're going to spay this dog. And he didn't want to do that. And he ended up, the sales guy of ours had talked to him, and he said, well, I'm going to give this a try.
All right, there's another sample of what's yet to come this week. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please go over to Apple or wherever you hear this podcast and leave us a review, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about this. Do you like hearing about this type of thing? I've got several Apple reviews. I don't know at the messages and emails that I've answered over these last two parts with just me and Brett. So let me know what you think about this. We're going to try to do some other stuff similar to this in the future. I really hope you enjoy it. I'm going to get off here and let y'all hear this podcast for this week. Thanks again for listening. Like I said, leave us a review, shoot us a message, let us know that you enjoyed the podcast or an email, and we will catch you on the next one. Welcome to the Coonhound Collective Podcast today. I'm pretty excited about today's podcast. I've been trying to get this put together for some time, and our guest today is a very busy gentleman, and we have today Keith Dodson with Extreme Dog Fuel. How's it going today, Keith?
Man, it is going great.
Man, I tell you, I'm excited to have you on here. I know we've kind of hit back and forth, and you've been busy, I've been busy trying to get this put together, and I'm just excited to talk about some dog food. I've been feeding your dog food for about 3 years now, and I have other hunters, coon hunters around me that feed Extreme Dog Fuel, and everybody that feeds it, that swaps over to feed it, no matter what other dog food they were feeding, they absolutely love it. So I wanted to get you on here and let's talk about it.
Well, I appreciate that, Jason, and you know, this podcast is a little bit more special to me. Me growing up as a kid, we had a lot of woods, and I spent a lot of nights coon hunting, squirrel hunting with dogs, and there's nothing prettier to me on that full moon night, stars are clear, and hearing that dog treat.
Absolutely. I tell you, I had the gentleman on the podcast, Mr. Stuart Peterson, that played Billy Coleman on the Where the Red Fern Grows, and I made the comment to him when he was on the podcast of, I thought I was Billy Coleman when I was a kid growing up.
I'll tell you one, Red Fern Grows. I think I did 3 different book reports throughout school, from junior high to high school, on that book. Love that book. I guess it's my favorite all-time book to read, because I'm like you. I mean, it just really hit home.
It's amazing to me, a book that was turned into a movie that has impacted so many young people's lives through the years, and even today, as old as that is, you still hear people reference Where the Red Fern Grows.
So Jason, are you a blue tick? Are you a walker? What's your favorite hound?
Well, my actual favorite hound of all time is a black and tan. I actually don't even own one at this time, but I am a member of the Black and Tan Association. I follow the breed very closely, but my second favorite is an English hound, and that's what I'm currently hunting. I have 3 English hounds currently in my kennels, 2 blues and a kind of a liver-colored red tick male.
Well, I was pretty big on the tree and walkers. I don't know why. You know, the old man that got me into coon hunting, that's what he primarily hunted, and boy, I miss those days. So let's talk some canine nutrition.
Yeah, I would love to. Before we start that, tell us where you're from. I didn't mention that to start with.
Sure. I'm from Magnolia, Arkansas. Born and bred here. We've traveled a little bit around the country, but God gave us direction to be able to move back home. And at first it was very scary, but here we are today. So I'm in the sort of flatland, small hills of Arkansas.
Okay, yeah. I want to talk. I definitely want to talk canine nutrition, and I kind of want to pick your brain here for how much time we have. And so you have the floor. I sent you some questions, and you just kind of go through them how you feel they make sense to go through them, and let's just talk about them.
Well, you was telling me that you have a lot of questions about grain-free versus grains in pet food. So why don't we start with it? And I'm going to give you my 2 cents and my beliefs and my education and background on this, and we can go from there. But I think your question was grain-free, no corn, etc. How did this come about?
Yep.
I'm not a grain-free nutritionist. I don't believe in grain-frees, that it will give us good nutrition. But on the other side of it, if a formula has too much of certain grains, that's not good either. So there's a balancing act there, but the way it came about, I believe, is strictly marketing. That as some of these corporations bought out some pet food companies, and this was a way to market dog food and make people think that they're feeding a cleaner, usable, better formula. But, if you're feeding a formula that's real high in certain grains, like I said, that's not good either. For me, and the reason I'm not a grain-free nutritionist, corn, sorghum, millet, wheat, I'm not fond of any soy products because of skin and hair coat issue. But those other grains have a place. And they can help with a few things. But for one, they help me convert true meat proteins to amino acids more efficiently. Corn's going to be high in vitamin A. Wheat has some properties in a very small amount, will help tighten up some stools. Sorghum and millet is a cleaner grain to me, but I just don't believe in overformulating with them. So, that's sort of how my thinking is on grain-free and how they came about, but there's a lot of grain-free products sold out there.
So you're saying 100% grain-free is not really good for the animal, but in the same tone, too much of a grain or multiple grains in it could also be adversely affect the animal as well. So there has to be a balance of the good grains in there.
Yes, and brown rice is a different animal, but when we're talking corn, sorghum, millet, wheat, there needs to be a very balanced nutrition on those type grains. Brown rice is my usable instant source of energy. It's a clean form of instant energy for the dog to burn, and it doesn't cause the other effects being overformulated with the other grains. So if we exclude the rice, those are the grains I'd look at is the sorghum, millet, corn, and wheat, that a canine needs some of those. They just don't need to be overformulated with.
Okay. One of the things which will lead into the next question we had wrote down was, a lot of times when I talk to people that have questions or have had issues with grain-free, it's in fertility issues. Is that something that you see from grain-free things, or you've heard about? And can you share some of the customer feedback you've got with your product as far as fertility?
Well, and I don't think it's totally grains. I just think, when you overformulate and you look at unbalanced nutrition, that the formula just doesn't work as good, and therefore it doesn't convert, and the dog is lacking certain aspects that cause problems. And I'm going to preach, I always preach about a good protein source. I always preach about a good carbohydrate source and then how we put that formula together to make it work. But then the micronutrients, the vitamin, mineral, omega package is well, I mean, that's where it's at. I just, that's my belief. And when we talk about fertility and you look at that, it's, um, it's just lacking nutrition. You look at those formulas, and it always comes to my mind that this is just not balanced. And looking at the guarantees, that they just don't have enough in there to excel for the dog to be able to perform. We had a guy here, it's been over a year now, out in Utah that has all these stud dogs, and every year they get them tested. And one of his main stud dogs just couldn't perform anymore. And he was feeding another product, and he's been on our food now a little over a year. But when they got ready to retest all the dogs like they do every year, they decided to go ahead and test this dog again. And we went from a non-performing stud dog to a very active stud dog now. And the vet asked him, said, what happened? What changed? And they said, the only thing we changed was the food. And I don't want to go into what they were feeding, but like you and I talked about, Jason, earlier. I had a customer here a few months back that was on our 30% protein, 20% fat, and he was bragging about how little it took to maintain his dog. And it was after hunting season, and I told him, I said, you need to drop down in protein and fat and feed a little bit more. And he said, well, what? That's going to cost more. In reality, he has cut out so much micronutrients that I think when we start talking about joint care, we start talking about skin and hair coat, we start talking about fertility, performance, he has cut that down to such a small amount that over time it would take effect on the dog. So I just, with me, I'm always going to talk about balanced nutrition and micronutrients because I just, time after time, I see when I know that's done right, it fixes issues that people are having on other dog foods every day.
The whole micronutrition, when we were talking and you mentioned that, and we were talking about how much I feed and some other people feed, and one of the big sellers to a lot of dog food is you don't have to feed as much. And when you
Mm-hmm.
when you said that to me, I really had been thinking, since me and you had talked, and since then I'd really been thinking about that, and I thought, that makes a lot of sense because not only are you cutting the dog food back, but you're also taking away those nutritions that the dog needs.
Well, and here's the example I'm going to give. And I love training labs now. Since I don't have the woods to coon hunt or squirrel hunt anymore, I really enjoy retrievers. Most of my labs are going to be on that 26-18 formula, somewhere around 2 cups, 2 to 3 cups, depend on the dog. But if I went to that 30-20 during the summertime, I don't want to go down to a cup. Now, if I go a little bit below 2 cups for that type of dog, I'm fine. But let's turn this around during hunting season. If I'm feeding a low protein fat or a diet that really doesn't convert, and now I'm feeding 7-8 cups a day to maintain my dog, there's other problems that go with that too. Um, Bloat, twisted gut, going to the vet, a huge vet bill, and possibly your dog dying. And that's why, when people call our office, the questions I want to know, what have you been feeding? What's the protein, fat, and how much by a standard measuring cup? And when we look at a FICE or something, we know that's going to be a lower amount. But if we're looking at a hound dog, that comes into a different level. So being a good feed manager and letting the dog really dictate to you the protein, fat, and the amount is very critical. So, sometimes I hate to say it, people want to get on one formula and they want to stay there. But sometimes, depending on the season and what's going on, we need to adjust that so that we're not having to make huge adjustments up or down on the amount of food that we're feeding.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, I've never really kind of thought about it from that way, the way me and you talked the other day, and then since then I just kind of have pondered that around in my mind, and I thought, that really makes sense to me of adjusting the formula to what the dog is doing or what the dog needs.
Well, in hound dogs, they're prone to injuries with all the running and mess. But when we look at hound dogs versus a lab, a German Shepherd, hound dogs' joints and hips should stay better throughout their life than the lab or German Shepherd. We all know you start with genetics, and breeding and correct breeding is very, very important. But then the nutrition throughout the life of that dog is really determining what that dog's going to do at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years of age. And somebody asked me the other day, do you really expect your labs to be hunting at 12 years of age? And my personal lab at 13 picked up 1,000 ducks across rice fields. And she didn't have good genetics and good breeding, but that nutrition done right throughout her life is the reason that she was able to do that. And I guess my thinking, Jason, they become family members. We spend so much time with them. We spend so much time training. We spend a lot of money on these dogs. Why would you want to have to retire, especially that once in a lifetime dog, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years early?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my thoughts. I mean, I'm crazy about my dogs, and people would probably laugh at me for what some of my dogs are buried with them, but that's just sort of how we feel about them.
Well, I will give you this little thing. You was talking about joints and stuff, and my brother-in-law, they had I think it was a cockapoo that was about
Mm-hmm.
12 or 13 years old when I first started getting your dog food and feeding it to my dogs. And I was, reading through the different formulas, and I was trying to find out what would work best for me. And they were having a lot of joint issues with this dog. I think it was about 12 years old. And they had took him to the vet, and the vet had it on all this medicine and all the supplements and stuff like that for these joint pains. They were ordering different supplements. And I got them on the 2618 that has the high glucosamine and stuff that y'all
Mm-hmm.
sell. And he started feeding this to this dog. And in about 6 months, they take the dog back to the vet, and there's like, well, you can come off of this, and she don't need that, and we don't know what you're doing, but
Wow.
the joints look a lot better. She seems like she's a lot freer moving. This dog went on to live another 4 or 5 years, and that's what they fed her till the day she died was at 2618.
Do you know, I've had customers that had swapped our food, and they might have an older squirrel dog or coon dog, and that special dog, and it's staying at their house till Jesus comes to take it. And they get on our food, and a year later, the guy's calling me and saying, I had retired this dog, but I got to watching it in the yard, and now it's playing with these other dogs like a puppy. It's jumping up in my truck again. It hadn't jumped up in my truck for the last 2 years, and I just don't understand this. And so this is micronutrients and outside of glucosamine chondroitin. And when I talk joint care, that's two pieces of the pie. There's other things, vitamins and minerals, the way omegas are done, that really help with inflammation, arthritis, joint lubrication, joint healing. And it makes those older dogs feel better and more mobile. So I'm glad to hear that. We hear those stories all the time, and the vets got them on this and that and everything else. Same thing on skin and hair coat, and months later the vet's like, "What did you do?" So I enjoy doing what I do because it is a feel good
Yeah.
industry with all the success that we hear from customers.
Yeah, I think I told you this. I have a picture, and I don't have her anymore. But in the spring, when the weather starts warming up, I'll get all whatever dogs I have here out of the kennel, and I'll bathe them and clean them up. And I had a black and tan female here that when I got her, she was real wiry haired and almost gummy feeling when you touch her or whatever. I put her, on extreme dog fuel, fed her that. I got her late in the winter, the rest of the winter, and that spring I got her out and I bathed that dog and had her tied out in the sun, just so she can lay around, enjoy the sun, and stuff like that. And she sits up, and I take a picture of her, and I mean she is the prettiest black, sparkling, coal black coat. I mean just a beautiful. Beautiful specimen of a black and tan coonhound, and hair just soft and slick and good looking, and I that's the number one thing I hear. Hey, I tried that dog food. I've been feeding it for a couple of months, and man, my dog's just slicked right up. Their hair just looks better. They seem like they feel better, and I hear that all the time from people.
And you'll think it's crazy, but a lot of the nutrition that I put in my dog food, I take the same things every day. Increased vitamin E, a little bit of extra zinc. My wife says I've got a witch's brew there in the cabinet of things I take at certain times, but I just believe in it that much.
Well, it's for sure working in the dogs for sure, and it would probably help some of us if we'd get on to it. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is phytoestrogens. What are they?
Sure.
How do they affect our dogs? Do they affect our dogs?
Well, and they can. You're going to see certain ingredients that's going to be higher in them. They can affect fertility. They can false pregnancy. They can cause some issues. When you look at these formulas that are going to be high in certain ingredients, and it's usually not one that does it. It's a combination of different things. And I hear a lot of people talking about grain free. We have a lot of conversations about they're on a grain-free diet and they're having false pregnancies, and you go through the list of ingredients, and it's probably not one that's doing it. It's a combination of several. I just, once again, I'm a high meat, brown rice, fat, and then how I put the rest of that formula together and the micronutrients. Peas is one of the ones that a lot of people have concerns in. And in our elite line, I do some peas, and the reason I do it is to get some natural good fiber that also offers me some nutritional um, characteristics with it, whereas beet pup only gives us a fiber content. Um, my breeders, we have a lot of Amish breeders up north in northern Indiana, and that was one of their concerns, and they keep very good records. But what they noticed was they had a higher puppy count, more puppy survives, the female recovers so much faster. Everything's just more healthy, and therefore their numbers are just better with the balanced nutrition in that. So peas, if they're over formulated with would and I have a hard time saying this, legumes, peas, sorghum, and too high content can cause some problems. Um, and I just think that's what it comes down to is the combination and not enough true meat protein, not enough true good carbs, and the micronutrients, and they have that problem. We actually have a dog in Minnesota right now that's been on our food a little over a month, and the vet told the guy, said, "You're going to spay this dog," and he didn't want to do that, and he ended up, the sales guy of ours had talked to him, and he said, "Well, I'm going to give this a try." And I think in 2 weeks she went to she stopped having false pregnancies and hadn't had any since. And I just think it's, the junk and not getting good nutrition. I told, it's been years ago, and I tell this story because I like talking about cheap dog food, and unfortunately, cheap dog food's pretty expensive today. But I was given this talk to a treeing hound dog club, and we was talking about cheap nutrition. And the guy in the back, and I'm not going to repeat exactly how he said it, but he said, "My dogs look very good on that cheap nutrition." And everybody laughed. And I patted my stomach and I said, "I look pretty good on the Golden Arches fast food." And I said, "But are we going to argue if that's going to cause me more health problems later in life? And if I've got to go train for a 5K, do you think that nutrition is going to give me what I need to be able to compete?" So if I'm competing dogs, nutrition gives a lot of people a very good edge. And I know we was talking about something else with this, but I mean, all this sort of goes together, that the body just doesn't work like it should when you're living off that type of diet, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. And that when you balance that out and you give the nutrition that we want to formulate, it makes those kind of differences in the dog. But yes, to answer your question, when formulas are done like that, it can cause, certain dogs that maybe have other problems, it can have a higher rate at causing those issues in those dogs.
Yeah, that completely makes sense to me for sure. I mean, it's hard to pass up a good cheeseburger, but it may not be the best thing for you at the time.
Yeah.
Um, this is probably going to perk some ears up on these last things here that we're going to talk when it comes to nutrition and dog food. But iodine salt, the removal of it, is
Ooh.
it good, bad, indifferent, and is it causing thyroid issues?
Boy, that's a hard one to answer. And I can't speak for other pet food companies, so it really makes it a hard question to answer. And I know a lot of other pet food companies' formulas from my consulting days, but here's what I would say. What I usually see is sodium chloride or salt coming in on other ingredients. You have to really watch animal proteins and their content there. So what we do is we add back iodine at the correct levels, and it's either going to be in, if you look at pet food companies and you read in ingredients, calcium iodate, potassium iodate, are two ways that most pet food companies are going to add that back. Um, and you're right. I do know that too little, too much can affect the thyroid. Um, and it's a hard question to answer because I mean, I know there's a lot of cheap nutrition out there is being sold in anywhere from that mid-20s up to that $60 range. And when you look at it, it's hard to tell on that. But to answer your question, yes, I believe that can cause um, a problem with that. And, it's a hard one for dog owners out there to really, which way do you go? It's It's a hard one, but yes, too high, too low, not enough. But I do think a lot of people think that that's been taken totally out, and I don't believe for the most part of the pet food industry that's true. I just think they're adding it back in other forms that most people don't realize what it is on the ingredient list. I
Gotcha.
actually, one of our mistakes is not on our ingredient list, and we're fixing to redo plates. I mean, I'm fixing to probably spend $70,000, redoing plates to correct this on my bags and some other things. But I mean, that's the best advice I can give is look, call the pet food company if you can actually, get somebody to talk to that knows anything. I mean, I would call and question and see what they say about it. They're probably all going to defend, but you probably need to look at calcium iodate or potassium iodate and see if that's in the ingredient list. I just, once again, it comes back to balanced nutrition. I do know some breeds, genetics really play a part in it. I know Dobermans, Beagles, Golden Retrievers really come to mind to have, are prone to have more problems. But I guess that would be my 2 cents on it.
Well, I think as far as nutrition, I think we've kind of covered a broad range there in a short period of time. I'm sure somebody's going to have to go back and listen to this again. Before I move on to the next area I want to talk to you about, was there anything else as far as nutrition that you felt like we needed to
No,
add, or you think we covered everything pretty good there?
I mean, Jason, I'm sort of an open book, and I spend a lot of time talking to customers about dog training and canine nutrition. Most days I don't feel like I have to work because if that's what I'm doing, it's pretty nice. But just read that and look at those guaranteed analysis, and if you're feeding extreme and you got a question, pick up the phone and call me.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about next is if they're listening to this podcast, where how they can get a hold of Extreme Dog Fuel to try it. But I'd like for you to, if you have a minute more here, to kind of tell us when did Extreme start, how long has it been going, and then let's get into depending on where they're out in the country. Obviously, if you're in Southwest Missouri or Northeast Oklahoma or Northwest Arkansas, you can get a hold of me. I can get you dog food. But if they're in other parts of the country, how can they get it? So if you can give us a little history on the company, and then let's talk about how they can
Sure.
get it.
Extreme Dog Fuel started January the 1st, 2002, by a dog trainer out of Spring Hill, Louisiana. And he did his first attempt at nutrition himself, and it was sort of a failure. And then he brought it to us, and we fixed his nutrition. That's how I first got involved with the company. They rock and rolled for several years, and through a buyout, I lost my job, and I went to doing a lot of consulting. And one day, they asked me to do some work on something, and the conversation turned. You ought to buy us out, and here we are today. But Extreme Dog Fuel is not a new company. It's been around since '02. We launched a new line in 2016 called Elite Nutrition, and since then we have really not looked back. I mean, we have been blessed with growth every year and good distributors that we like to call friends. So I mean, that's a little bit about the company. As far as getting it, we have gone a lot to distributors. We used to ship direct to a lot of dog trainers, and freight has become such it's the monster in the room now. LTL freight has changed the way that we did business back in 2002 up to probably 2014. And Fortunately, we had enough reputation out there that started gaining some distribution, and that makes it a lot easier to get to the store. So BWI covers from Texas to Missouri over to North Carolina down to Florida. We're in the process of setting up a new distributor for Virginia and West Virginia. We have set up a distributor in New York that covers Pennsylvania, New York, and all those little states up there called CFD. It's a co-op distributor. So any of the co-ops out up there definitely have access to our products. We got an Amish distributor in northern Indiana and one in Illinois, small distributor. Hirsch is in Missouri. Black Line is out in Utah, and they're covering a lot of area where we had vacant. So, the best way is pick up the phone, give us a call, send us an email, give us, name, location. If you've got a store where we have distribution, that's an easy way to get it. Midwest Greyhound Supply will ship a couple of products of ours to you, and so will Blackline. So it's we're steadily covering more and more of the U.S. So, and I forgot your last question.
Oh, that was it. I was just wanting to know. I just wanted you to share with people how
Well,
they could get it and
and Jason, I will say this, and it's like my Amish breeders up there. I hear this all the time. Well, we ship puppies all over the U.S. and we'll ship a bag of dog food anywhere in the U.S. too. To their those type customers. Um, but we always want to get to a store or somewhere to help save cost where possible. So, I don't care if you're in California or New York City. We have a way to get you product.
yeah. And again, you've heard us talk about it. Uh, I'm doing this because I like Keith. I think Keith's a great guy. We've had many conversations. I think they have a great product. Keith don't sponsor my podcast. He's not on. I'm not on here bragging because he's paying me to do anything or anything like that. I've been feeding this product for over 3 years, and it's just a great product, and I believe in it. Brett, as most of y'all hear on the podcast from time to time with me, he is a very, very stickler when it comes to dog feed, and he has swapped off his dogs to Extreme and been feeding it for a while now. And there's many other several people here local to me that buy from me that have swapped to this dog food, and I have never had not one complaint from any customer that's feeding it. It's just a good product.
It's a feel good industry for us. And you just proved that. I mean, that's great.
Yeah. Um, yeah. One other question I wanted to ask that I thought about while you were talking there was, we talked about micronutrition and you talked about feeding, the right formula and feeding the right amounts. If you're doing all those things, is there a need to feed another type of supplement along with the dog food? Is there any reason to do that if you're feeding a good
No,
quality dog food?
I've actually seen people that are over supplementing their dogs, and that's what's causing the problems. Now, if you're feeding something and basically all they guarantee on the back of the bag is protein, fat, moisture, fiber, maybe one or two other things. Um, you might need some supplements, but I mean, if you flip over like our elite line, well, we're guaranteeing so much there from the protein, fat, fiber, moisture, linoleic acid, calcium, phosphorus, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, B12, folic acid, omega 3 and 6, glucosamine chondroitin. There is no reason. I mean, I'm not going to say no reason, but I have not seen it yet for you to have to supplement anything. Now, I will share a trade secret. Um, we get sort of known as the skin and hair coat people. And occasionally somebody will call me and they will say, hey, I'm on this, and this from the vet, and it's costing me all this money. And somebody told me if anybody could help me as y'all, and my dog's allergic to this and this. Well, come find out is it goes back to the unbalanced nutrition, the micronutrients, and if the food doesn't fix it, sometimes we will do some virgin coconut oil. That's the only thing I usually ever supplement is, and that's skin and hair coat, and maybe they got a lot of environmental allergies. Maybe they've had a flea or tick bite they've had a reaction to. So I'm not going to say never because I do sometimes virgin coconut oil. I'm pretty amazed with that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I just thought about that, and I know there's a lot of supplements out there, and a lot of people are pushing them, a lot of
Well,
people are using them. So I,
and I want you to think about this. Here, not too long ago, there was recalls for vitamin D and over. And if you start looking at some of these supplements, um, a dog food should be formulated, and if it's an all life stage, they shouldn't be skimping on that type of stuff.
mm,
So if they're not skimping on it, sometimes you're getting at higher levels. For like us, we're about the max I want to be at on zinc because too much zinc can be hard on the stomach. But zinc at where we're at will help with inflammation, arthritis control. It helps strengthen the hair coat. So if somebody's supplementing and it has a bunch of extra zinc in it, so that's why supplementing always scares me.
yeah, and that makes sense to me. I thought about that when you were talking, and I thought, I need to ask that while I got an opportunity with you on the phone
Yeah.
to see where you're at. Was there anything else you could think of that we need to add, or we missed, or you want to talk about?
No, I mean, your customers, the thing I tell everybody, we're a small family-owned company that we want to do business sort of like my grandfather taught me. We don't want another customer. We want to make another friend. I just like to do business a little bit different than other people out there. So you won't find us in Tractor Supply or Walmart or Chewy from my past experience. We're dedicated more to the co-op, mom and pop, people that actually live and work and support the local community. So that's sort of who I got in bed with, and it's working. And that's where people need to go look for our food at or request our food at. So
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, Keith don't sponsor this podcast. I'm doing this because I believe in the product. I wouldn't get on here and push for you listeners a product if I didn't do something with it myself. I feed this product to all of my dogs. There's not another dog food bag been on this property in 4 years, about 3.5, 4 years now. And as far as I'm concerned, that as long as I can get to it somewhere, some way, some kind of way, I'm going to feed Extreme Dog Fuel. Um, Keith, if you don't have anything else, I do have a contact for you in Pennsylvania, so don't hang up when we finish here. But
good.
um, if you don't have anything else to add, what I would like to do is point everybody to the website, extremedogfuel.com. You can get on there. You can see the different products that they offer. I think there's even a way to contact them. Is there an email
Yeah.
address or another phone number? Or is that the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Any of them, if they want to email sales at extremedogfuel.com, that's going to hit about 3 or 4 different computers to make sure that everybody gets it. So my direct email address is Keith at Extreme Dog Fuel, and phone number 318-994-2404, and I'm extension 4.
Okay, there you have it. If you're interested in the product, and I highly recommend you to if you're going to try it, get on it and actually try it. Don't get on it and mess around for a week or two and be like, well, that don't work, and go back. Just get on it and try it, because I'm telling you, it's a good dog food. I've been feeding it for a long time. Some of you that know Brett know how of a stickler and picky he can be. He's feeding this dog food. He believes in it as well. So get on it, give it a try. Don't think you'll go wrong. And Keith, if you don't have anything else to add, I appreciate you taking time today to be able to get on here and get on the podcast and kind of answer a few questions that we may have.
Well, hey, man, I appreciate you and your friendship and support. I appreciate it a lot.
Yep. Well, thank you for joining us, and hang on, Keith. I'll get you that contact. Hang on just a second. Thanks, guys, for listening to the Coonhound Collective podcast today. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to listen to the podcast. If you don't mind, head over to Facebook and give us a like, and head over to Instagram and give us a follow. It's both at the Coonhound Collective. Also, if you would like to reach us here at the Coonhound Collective, you can reach us at thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. If there's someone that you would like to hear on the podcast, or a product that you would like to hear talked about, please send it to thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. Thanks again. Have a great day.